Welcome to CrashMagic, and in this video we've got a performance and then a tutorial of the card trick called Vernon's Miracle. Now I'm sure you might have guessed this trick was created by the great Canadian card magician Dai Vernon. I really like this trick because it is so simple and so easy to learn, but it's also a brilliant example of how in a card trick the steps that are so critical for the trick to work are made to seem not important, and other steps that are really not relevant at all to how the trick works are made to seem so important. This is Vernon's Miracle then, and if you the spectator would like to take the cards and shuffle them as much as you like and in any way that you like. Now at this point, as the magician, I would turn away and I would not see any of the next steps that are about to be done. Of course I can't do that without a spectator, so I'll show you exactly how the performance would work, but just keep in mind at this point the magician would be turned away and would not see any of these next steps. So the magician would ask the spectator to take the deck that they've just shuffled and select any card and to turn it face up on the table. Now the first thing I'd ask them to do is, if they'd picked a low value card, an ace or a 2 or a 3, something like that, I'd ask them to put it back and choose a different one. In this case they've picked a high value card, a queen, so that's absolutely fine. Next I'd ask them to take the pack and to deal face down into a pile a number of cards equal to the value of their card. So I'd give them examples that if they'd chosen a 5, they should deal 5 cards face down into a pile. A jack 11, a queen, as in this case 12, or a king 13. So I'd ask them to do that, but also warn them not to deal the cards loudly so that I could count how many cards to do it quietly. So in this case they would deal 12 cards, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, down into a pile. I'd then ask them to deal another pile face down with the same amount of cards in again. And then I'd ask them to place the rest of the pack to the side, out of the way, because we don't need those cards anymore. I'd then ask them to choose either of the face down piles and to shuffle those cards. And once they'd shuffled them, I'd ask them to place their selected card on top of that pile, making sure they remember that card before they do that. So Queen of Clubs in this case. I'd then ask them to cut that pile and complete the cut. So their card was now in the middle of this pile. I'd then ask them to take the other pile and to shuffle those cards. And then I'd ask them to take this second pile and slot it somewhere in the middle of the first pile. Then cut those cards and complete the cut. So at this point, as the magician, I would turn back around. I wouldn't have seen any of those steps that had just taken place, and I would confirm with my spectator that they'd shuffled all these cards together and their selected card was somewhere in the middle of this group here. I'd say to them that I was going to try and find their card, but would they like to shuffle the cards one last time before I did? So once they'd shuffled the cards, I would then take them and look through them and try to identify their card. Okay, I think I have your card. What was your card? The Queen of Clubs. There it is, the Queen of Clubs. So that was the performance of Vernon's Miracle, and I hope you enjoyed it. And now here's the tutorial showing exactly how you do it. It's really easy, there's no sleight of hand, it's almost self-working. So you start with your pack of cards, and the spectator can freely shuffle these cards. It's totally impromptu, and they can select any card that they like. Just to make the tutorial a bit more clear, we'll say they choose exactly the same card, the Queen of Clubs, and as I say, at this point the magician would be turned away, they would not see this at all. You would then ask them to deal cards out to the same value as their card, and this is the critical part of the trick. So they've selected a queen, so we get them to deal 12 cards down, face down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Of course, they wouldn't count the cards out loud like I've just done, and also you would say to them to deal quietly so that you couldn't hear how many cards they were counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You ask them to do that again, so they've now got 2 piles of cards face down, each with the same amount of cards in as the value of their card. We can get rid of the rest of this card, and this is the key part of the trick. All of the rest of the steps around the trick then are just to add confusion and misdirection. So the key concept to how this trick works is the number of cards in these piles. So we know we've got 12 and 12 here and 1 here, so when we turn back later we will add all these cards up, which will be 12 plus 12 is 24, plus 1 is 25. And by taking that number 25, taking off 1 and dividing by 2, which will give us 12 in this case, we know that the value of the card that the spectator selected was a queen. That is absolutely how the trick works and the whole concept behind the trick. But of course, as I say, we want to give as much misdirection to this as possible, and we want the spectator really to almost forget about this step that they've done here of counting the cards. So all the next steps in the trick are key to doing that. So you ask them to select one of the piles of cards and to shuffle it, and to place their selected card, the Queen of Clubs, on top. So at this point the spectator's thinking, oh okay, my card's on top of this pile, that's easy to find. But then you say to them, can you cut the cards and complete the cut? Then you ask them to take the other pile and shuffle. And I think this next one's a really confusing step. You ask them to place this pile in the middle of this pile. Now again, your back's turned so you can't see them doing this, and they might not be quite clear what that step means. What does that mean? Does it mean push it like that? What if some of the cards overlap? And of course, as we know now, it's irrelevant, it doesn't matter. But to them that seems such a random step. And then I would also get them to cut the pack maybe one more time before turning back around. Now it's at this point in the trick as the magician that you want to count these cards, and the easiest way to do that I find is just to spread the deck like this and reiterate some of the steps that they've done, that they've shuffled the cards together, their selection is lost somewhere in the middle of these cards. Obviously the thing that you absolutely do not want to reiterate and remind them of is the fact that they counted cards here to the value of their card. You want them to forget about that step altogether. So once you've counted the cards, in this case we've got 25, taken 1 off to make 24, halved it to make 12, you know the value of their card, 12, it's a queen, their card is a queen. So again, to add a slight bit of misdirection to the fact you've just spread the cards, I would then say, just before I try and find your card, would you like to shuffle the cards one last time? So now they're thinking, their card's in here, it was part of 2 piles and it's hopelessly lost now. But of course you know their card was a queen. So all you need to do, I'll show you, but of course you wouldn't show the cards to the spectator as you were doing this. You would look through this pile, find a queen, and that would be their card. Now of course there might be more than one queen, so how do we handle that? Let's start with the simple option to start with though, that there's only one queen or whatever their card was in here. So let's say we look through, there's only one queen, so we know that must be their card, the Queen of Clubs. Of course you can reveal this however you want, but the easiest way is just to place it down on its own and say, could you tell me what your card was, the Queen of Clubs, and reveal it. Or you could just reveal it without asking them what their card was. But as you can see in this case, we had 2 queens, and that's of course quite a likely thing to happen. Now of course, depending on the value of the card they selected depends on how many cards you've got here. So the higher the value of the card that they selected, the more cards you'll have here, and the more chance there is that you'll have duplicates of their value. So in this case we've got 2 queens, but that's a really situation to handle. As we look through, again not showing the spectator, trying to find their card, all we would do in this case is place one of the queens on the bottom and one of the queens on the top. We don't know which their card is, but we know it's one of these 2, and we just remember Queen of Hearts is on top, Queen of Clubs is on the bottom, and place the cards down. We could then say to the spectator, oh, what was your card? And they would say Queen of Clubs, and you can just turn, in this case, the whole pile over to reveal their card. Of course, if they'd have said my card was the Queen of Hearts, all you need to do is turn the top card over to reveal their card. Okay, let's look at the other scenarios where we've got, let's say we've got 3 queens, and 3 is probably the hardest one to handle, I would say, but it's still not difficult. So you'd look through for their selected card, queen in this case, you find there's 3 of them. So what I would do at that point is I would place one on the top and one on the bottom, remembering their suits, and I would place one in the middle, and I'll exaggerate it here, but I would leave it, as I'm going through, I would leave it sticking out slightly, not too much that the spectator can see, but I'd leave it sticking out slightly, square the cards back up and place them down. Again, I've exaggerated that so you can see, but I would leave a middle queen sticking out. In actual performance, obviously we'd do it a lot less and put the cards down a bit more haphazard so that it couldn't be seen. So then, when we ask the spectator to reveal their card, if they say it's the Queen of Clubs, you can turn the whole pile over and reveal their card. If they say it's the Queen of Hearts, you can turn the top card over to reveal their card. And if they say it's the Queen of, what was the other one? Diamonds, wasn't it? If it was the Queen of Diamonds, you can then, where that card is sticking out, you can cut the card. So it looks like you're just cutting the cards, but you're actually cutting where their card is and reveal you've cut straight to their card, the Queen of Diamonds. So that's quite a nice way as well. So what if, by chance, and it is possible, especially again if they've picked a high value card, you've got all 4 of their value, so queens in this case, all 4 in the selection. Well, the trick's called Vernon's miracle, and this then really is a miracle, and this really is about taking advantage of the situation that you found yourself in. So if they've got all 4, what you can do is you can place 2 at the top and 2 at the bottom. Again, remember the order. So in this case I've got hearts, diamonds, and then from the bottom clubs, spades. Again, ask them to reveal their card, and then depending on what they say, you can reveal it. So say they say, oh, it's my card was the Queen of Clubs, you can just turn over. If it's the Queen of Hearts, you can just turn like this. But if it was, say, the Queen of Diamonds or the Queen of Spades, you can, as I say, really take advantage of the situation and say, oh, your card was the Queen of Spades. Well, let me count 2 cards from the top, 2 cards from the bottom, and not only have we found your card, the Queen of Spades, we've also found all the other queens from a pack of cards that you shuffled and dealt, and that really is a miracle. So that's the end of this video on Vernon's miracle. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe. If you've got any comments, leave them down below, and see you soon.